morning sun shines on the gleaming hide of a muscular ranch horse. The aroma of bacon and coffee drifts from the wood cook stove at a cow camp. Silver spurs jingle as the men and women of the West get set for another day in the saddle. From the heart of Canada's finest ranching country, this is the Spirit of the West with rancher and horse trainer Hugh McLennan and his collection of music, poetry, and conversations with the folks who live and work with horses and cattle in the Spirit of the West.
Well, I've said this many times. I'd rather be on a horse moving cattle along a trail, across a meadow, or even down a road than hauling them behind my old pickup in a stock trailer, because things like this can happen.
Ron laid on the horn. The runaway truck sailed through a flurry of cows that had scattered to both sides. Over the bar ditches and through the fences they flew.
Baxter Black has the vivid details for the runaway stock trailer today, and the Rangeland News has a story that really surprised us.
The contamination ended up in the salad that people were putting together as a side salad to go with their chicken thighs.
And Randy Rieman is back this week with more of his cowboy experience from Montana to Hawaii.
There's no place I'd rather brand calves than in California, because they just put a few calves in a pen, maybe 10, and you got a couple headers and a couple heelers, and it's very much teamwork and stock handling.
On the Urban Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, the fine line between being too easy or too assertive with your horse. Randy Rieman will also grace the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight this week, and this song sure says a lot. Some of our greatest accomplishments, jobs we get done in spite of all odds, are done away out on the range or out in the bush where nobody ever sees them. This is Michael Fleming and the Rodeo Nobody Knows.
On the back roads of Utah near the San Rafael, an old rough stock rider strides to the corral. His body all battered from battles he's fought, all whalebone and rawhide and eyes like a hawk. He takes a deep seat on a Mustang that waits like a time bomb just ticking away. A flash of the spur and a mad dance of hooves, and a bronc buster starts a new day. At the rodeo nobody knows, no crowds cheer allowed, no trophies of gold. Every day there's a Wild West show. At the rodeo nobody knows. A young man on horseback in the West Texas brush, searching for strays left behind in the bush. He senses a movement below in the draw. His cow pony tenses and waits for the call. Then out with a mad dash and down the ravine, the young maverick races away. And right there behind him and building a loop, the hand closes in on his prey. At the rodeo nobody knows, no crowd cheering loud, no trophies of gold. Every day there's a Wild West show. At the rodeo nobody knows. Texas to Canada, northwest and south, from the Gulf to the Great Basin too. The punchers, vaqueros, and buckaroos ride, 'cause it's what they were destined to do. At the rodeo nobody knows, no crowds cheering loud, no trophies of gold. Every day there's a Wild West show. At the rodeo nobody knows.
awesome group there. Real Reynoso, Dave Jackson, and Michael Fleming, collectively known as New West. Well, Randy Rieman has ridden the ranges of Texas, California, and even on the big island of Hawaii, but there's a place that's still his favorite.
Montana's my first love, and it's my home, and yeah, you know, there were a lot of those 40 below mornings where you're out there feeding cows and chopping ice and moving cattle to horseback, and of course that's the extreme. The other part of it is the glorious summers up in the mountains on the grazing associations, you know, and it's just kind of like a fairy tale story, but I've softened up a bit since I've been in Hawaii. The temperature is rarely more than a 20-degree fluctuation, and so I guess my comfort range has gotten a little bit narrower.
It sounds like a cowboy in paradise to me, Randy.
Well, you know, it's a beautiful place. I'm privileged to be there. Like I say, I feel like I've lived under a charmed star in a lot of ways, because I've worked in some of the most beautiful country there is, and some great historic ranches. I worked on a ranch here in Central California that was a Spanish land grant established in 1834, and it's still a working cow outfit, and it was a big place. We ran 34,000 yearlings there, you know, so it's been good.
I know that you got to get over and sign autographs, and it's getting darn cold here, but I just want to ask you about the difference in maybe in roping styles and gear between Montana and down in this part of California. I know where we are, anything longer than the 30-foot rope was going to get you hung in the brush almost, and some areas of Montana are kind of like that, but we hear about the vaquero traditions down here. Did you get to sort of operate under both sets of circumstances?
You know, I have. The guys up in Montana, when I got started cowboying, it's pretty utilitarian, just whatever you've got and whatever the feed store handles, that's what you rode or that's what you roped with. And when I come down to California, actually I split my time between Nevada and California for about 4 years, and I got onto the long rope. 60 foot's just a minimum now. I just feel like I have a pigging string if it's shorter than that. And of course the gear down here, the beautiful tooled saddles and the ornate silver, I fell in love with that. Can't afford much of it, but to try to get what I can. Then as I progressed over to Hawaii, it was like going back to the dark ages, because those guys, they're super utilitarian. Their saddles haven't really changed since the first Spanish vaqueros from California went over there to help them learn how to handle cattle, and they're just basically a bare tree with some stirrup leathers hanging off of it and a rigging hook to it, and it's really crude, really crude.
Our discussion moves on to the bridle horse traditions of California with Randy Rieman when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Farm Fair International returns this November 6th to 10th. Witness the future of Alberta's agriculture industry as guests from around the world gather at the Edmonton Expo Center to buy and sell top quality livestock, make important connections, and share knowledge. At Farm Fair, you can shop for unique holiday gifts at the Winter Marketplace or enjoy a variety of Western entertainment like the Stock Dog Trials and the Heritage Ranch Rodeo. It's a big deal to buy, sell, and connect. Plan your visit at farmfairinternational.com. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Boy, it was a chilly day down there in Santa Clarita, California. We were at Gene Autry's famous Melody Ranch, where some of Gene's later movies were actually filmed. And I was visiting with a guy who is pretty much a cowboy icon, Randy Rieman.
So you've seen every end of the spectrum, from gear to styles and ways of doing it.
I think I have. You know, I'm hooked on the good gear. I always ride a custom saddle, and I try to spend my money wisely on that nice gear, and I wouldn't ride one of those Hawaiian rigs across the street if I couldn't. My little old skinny rump, it needs more padding than that, but the guys, they're real utilitarian, like I said. They're not into fancy gear at all, but it works.
Is there a fair bit of roping involved in doctoring?
You know, there are some real good team ropers over there that seems to fit their style. They like to go fast and kind of have fun, and that's kind of fits right in. Their branding style is really unique in that they crowd a lot of calves in a really small pen, and then they hold the hondu of their rope in their hand. And they swing that rope in a backhanded motion and just throw slack. They don't throw the rope, they just throw slack like you were fishing with that hondu in their hand. So they get a big old loop flung out there, and they drop that over a calf's head, and then they just track him around until he steps through it. And that's how they get to hind feet, and then they come to the fire that way. and there'll be 4 or 5 guys in that small pen with enough cattle in there it looks like a sardine can, and the idea is to keep them from moving much. And that's just how they got started, and I'm not really sure where that style came from, but that's how they all rope and brand their calves over there. It's very fast, but it's not real pretty.
Yeah. I don't know. We try to keep that tradition alive even when we brand our little bunch. Somebody always heels and drags them into the fire, but I was talking to Jack Swanson one time about this kind of thing, and I was hoping one day he was going to come up and kind of show us the California style. He told me, if you ever show up down here with rubber on your horn, you'll be sent out of the country. But I guess in California there's some real artists that can do these backhand throws and over and every which way.
That's another thing that opened up to me when I came to California. I was a pretty sorry roper. I could get a few to the fire, without getting the crew too lazy, but I got exposed to really 3 men, Bill Askew and Brian Newbert and Joe Walter, who are just tremendous at every aspect of the livestock industry and really good ropers. And they kind of got me up to speed, and then I got to learning some of those nice California shots. And Bill Dorrance, of course, the legendary man, and I became great friends, and he taught me to braid riatas. And so I got to using these nice riatas, and they just make it even more fun. And there's no place I'd rather brand calves than in California, because they just put a few calves in a pen, maybe 10, and you got a couple headers and a couple heelers, and it's very much teamwork and stock handling, and it goes pretty slow, and it's meant to have a good time.
Well, a couple of our Spirit of the West cruises have actually taken us to the famous Parker Ranch on the big island of Hawaii. What a fascinating place, and home to the Paniolos. And a few years ago, a tribute to these unique island cowboys was recorded by none other than Randy Travis.
Places I have been, cities I have seen, with concrete canyons rising from the ground. Miles and miles of asphalt trails stretch across the land, with stampeding metal ponies leaving smoke along the way. Going back to Paniolo country, stars at night, no city lights. Paniolo country, my home on the range. I made up my mind, won't waste any time, going back to where the clouds ride high. Take my word, it's pretty, not like great big cities. The wind still brings the cool, clear mountain air. Going back to Paniolo country, rain does fall and grass grows tall. Paniolo country, my home on the range. Places I have been, cities I have seen, with concrete canyons rising from the ground. Miles and miles of asphalt trails stretch across the land, the stampeding metal ponies leaving smoke along the way. Going back to Paniolo country, stars at night, no city lights. Paniolo country, my home on the range. Paniolo country, rain does fall and grass grows tall. Paniolo country, my home on the range. Paniolo country, my home on the range.
Well, now we'll take a big geographical move from Santa Clarita, California to Vernon, British Columbia, where the Sons of the Pioneers, by the way, will be performing on October the 8th, and we're going to be there. Anyhow, this was at the O'Keefe Ranch Cowboy Festival and Ranch Rodeo just outside of Vernon, and I had recruited a couple of my musician colleagues that I knew were also darn good cowboys, Butch Falk and Rob Dinwiddie, and the three of us entered as a team there in the Ranch Rodeo. Now, my beloved old buckskin mare Lucky has traveled all over the country with me many, many times, but this was about the first time she was ever away from home.
At the O'Keefe Ranch Cowboy Festival and Ranch Rodeo with one of the outstanding members of the Spirit of the West Ranch Cowboy team, Rob Dinwiddie. Rob, I thought we ought to do a post-mortem on how that, from your perspective, what was going on out there?
Well, Hugh, what was going on was we were up against some of the finest cowboys in the interior of British Columbia.
The best in the whole world, I would say.
I would say so if you want to compare. I don't know if we would categorize ourselves in that place, but I think we gave her a good shot.
I guess that would be the word to use.
Good shot.
Yeah, shot.
Well, we had Butch. Butch was riding that good Appaloosa horse of yours, or his rather, and you were throwing some pretty good loops, and it just the way the wind was blowing. And,
I did catch one horn on one of the wrong steers at one time. That's about as close as we got.
Hey, I'll tell you what though, Hugh, when it comes to roping calves, the amount we've worked together, I think it was all right. And when you consider the fact that the fans got what they came for, to see some working cowboys and a little bit of humor we provided.
We provided the comic relief.
That's exactly right.
I really thought you did a great job in that hide race. So
well, all you got to do, I figured out the trick of the hide race. You just hang on tight to that rope and keep close to the carpet and keep your head out of the dust. And that's why the cowboy developed the wild rag. So you can just put that up and over the nose. You don't get any dirt up your nostrils, and it's pretty good.
We were actually close there for a little while. I think old Don was just reaching out, and then he got a little heavier load to pull on the second half of the race.
That's right. Yeah, I've noticed that he slowed down somewhat, but I don't know if it was exactly to do with my weight. But it went well though, Hugh.
I would say so. Had you ever done that before, that hide race?
The hide race is not something that I've been accustomed to. About the closest thing to that was rolling off a bed, I think, and falling nose first when I was a kid. But
or getting your spur caught in the stirrup as you fall off your horse and getting drugged or something like that.
That's right.
The only thing is, this is a ranch rodeo, and most of these events kind of simulate the kind of work we do on a ranch all the time. And I guess we're just going to have to do more of that hide race on the ranch to practice up.
Well, I'll tell you what, Hugh. I guess what I've seen with the working cowboys, they come in here and they make it look so doggone slick. I work with cowboys and ranchers all the time, and you forget or you don't realize how equipped these boys really are. And they're doing the roping every day, and I guess I'm quite proud to see that the working cowboys that are out there, they're sure handy with a rope.
I'm not sure if they use that or do that hide drag or hide race at ranch rodeos much anymore, where you have a cowhide and one guy ties the end of his catch rope to the cowhide and then gets on his horse and tallies up, and the other two team members have to sit or ride on their stomach on top of that hide. And actually, I think I can dig up some photographs of Rod and Butch and I doing that at that ranch rodeo and try and maybe put them up on the YouTube version of this show so you can see what we're up to there. Anyway, coming up, Baxter Black describes the runaway stock trailer adventure and the rangeland news, all coming up when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Farm Fair International returns this November 6th to 10th. Witness the future of Alberta's agriculture industry as guests from around the world gather at the Edmonton Expo Center to buy and sell top-quality livestock, make important connections, and share knowledge. At Farm Fair, you can shop for unique holiday gifts at the Winter Marketplace or enjoy a variety of Western entertainment like the Stock Dog Trials and the Heritage Ranch Rodeo. It's a big deal to buy, sell, and connect. Plan your visit at farmfairinternational.com.
Howdy, friends. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan with a little peek at the Battle of Rudy Creek.
Your land is a legacy, a challenge from those who tended it before you to build on their foundations. At Corteva Agriscience, we understand what it means to be the stewards of a legacy. We embrace the challenge of building on the foundation of Dow AgroSciences to maintain your trust, to bring new solutions, to help you care for your land. See how we can help build your legacy at rangeandpasture.com.
And for our Canadian listeners, just check Corteva.ca, the Canadian website.
It was the day before the regular auction at Fort Pierce, South Dakota. Ron had sorted off a truckload of cows. They were in a pasture down by the road that had no corral. No sweat, he said. He and his son hauled a set of portable panels and a ramp to a wire fence down by the road and assembled a loading pen. The neighbor across the road had a pasture full of range hogs. 2 sows heard the ruckus on the highway and came to check it out. These 400-pound curious beasts arrived and spooked the cows, who turned and stampeded back to the other side of the pasture. It took till noon to regather the renegade cattle, pen 'em up again, and load 'em in the truck. Our cowboys climbed aboard, and things went fairly smoothly till they topped the rise that sloped down to Rudy Creek Bridge. It seems about an hour earlier, a farmer had stuck his 40-foot single-wide mobile home on the Rudy Creek Bridge. Ron topped the rise, saw the block bridge, and stomped on his brakes. He managed to reduce his speed to 20 miles an hour before he drove the nose of his truck all the way into the built-in shower and bath combination. Well, it was 4:30 before the wreckage was untangled and they could proceed. The radiator survived, but the compressor and headlights were broken. No lights, no brakes. As the dusk began to descend, they were drawn between driving faster to save daylight or driving slower so they could stop. Ron crested another hillock and, Lord have mercy, saw 2 cowboys pushing a small bunch of cows down the road. Ron laid on the horn. The runaway truck sailed through a flurry of cows that had scattered to both sides. Over the bar ditches and through the fences they flew. Ron could actually hear the screaming and curses over the engine and blaring horn. Well, at the sale the next day, Ron told his story many times, and with each telling, he became a better driver, a good Samaritan, a tour guide, a historian, and eventually he absolved himself of any responsibility for the damages done. He blamed it all on the pigs. Well, thanks, Ron, and thank you all for listening. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, brought to you by Corteva Agri-Science.
Farm Fair International returns this November 6th to 10th. Witness the future of Alberta's agriculture industry as guests from around the world gather at the Edmonton Expo Center to buy and sell top-quality livestock, make important connections, and share knowledge. At Farm Fair, you can shop for unique holiday gifts at the Winter Marketplace or enjoy a variety of Western entertainment like the Stock Dog Trials and the Heritage Ranch Rodeo. It's a big deal to buy, sell, and connect. Plan your visit at farmfairinternational.com. Just ahead of the rangeland news, this guy has an amazing story. He's been a long-time top-rated radio personality from Edmonton and, Medicine Hat, Lloydminster, all the way to the U.S. East Coast using the name Vic Armin. But music fans know him by his real name, Brian Festukian.
As a kid I used to love these Hollywood cowboy hats, where the boy gets the girl wears a smile, the sunset never ends, ride out on the prairie where the deer and the antelope play, the moon and the stars and the big guitar. He was a hero all the way, and he'd roam around heaven all day, singing yippee-i-oh, yippee-i-oh. I still recall the thrill of it all when he'd rescue the maiden in distress. He'd ride off that silver screen with that beautiful movie queen. He was the hero of a golden day. Yippee-i-oh, yippee-i-oh, where the buffalo roar and the coyotes howl. He's the hero of the golden west. He's the hero of the golden west.
Now the news of the rangeland, a roundup of news and coming events from around the West.
At the top of page 1, it said, "This was a big surprise when we heard it. I guess we've been doing it wrong up until now."
Food safety experts say we should not wash poultry before cooking it, but we should wash our hands thoroughly before and after handling raw meat and poultry. But it turns out most of us are doing it backwards, washing the poultry, not washing our hands. This from a new Agriculture Department study that put 300 people in test kitchens preparing chicken thighs and salads. The chicken spiked with a harmless, traceable bacteria.
The first thing we saw out of this research was just the level of cross-contamination that happens when chicken is washed.
A high level. Chris Bernstein with USDA's Food Safety and Inspection Service told us washing the poultry splashed and spread the bacteria all over the sinks, countertops, people's hands, which spread it to utensils, phones, door handles.
And most concerning, the contamination ended up in the salad that people were putting together as a side salad to go with their chicken thighs.
So experts are urging us prepare things like salads before handling raw meat and poultry, clean and sanitize every surface, every utensil, every hand that touches raw meat and poultry. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
Plant-based meat alternatives have seen booming interest from consumers, prompting a growing number of companies to enter the space in hopes of carving out a spot for their products in the competitive supermarket aisle. Consumers increasingly, they say, want to reduce their meat consumption amid growing concerns over health risks, animal welfare, and environmental hazards. Spurred on by the success of California-based Beyond Meat, Inc., veteran meat companies have also entered the market. Shoppers at U.S. grocery stores have a lot of plant-based options, with several companies planning to roll out meat alternatives by the end of this year. With a looming feed shortage, it's been getting more costly to feed cattle, according to Mike Nurnberg, the marketing representative for Winnipeg Livestock Sales. He estimates it's been costing about $4 per head per day Canadian to feed an individual animal, which adds up to the amount a feedlot is feeding and for the length of time the cattle are there. Cattle were in a feedlot for about a week. Now the animals are there for 2 or 3 weeks, he says. And that's not only made the cost of doing business more expensive, it's also priced a lot of Canadian cattle out of the U.S. market. U.S. veterinarians are urging cattlemen to be vigilant for anthrax, as they have seen a spike in confirmed cases. In southwest Texas, anthrax has recently been found in 5 counties, part of a region known as the Anthrax Triangle, and a case was also recently confirmed in southwest South Dakota. Anthrax is a spore-forming bacterium, as you may know, called Bacillus anthracis, and it occurs naturally in the soil. Clinical signs of anthrax in cattle, sheep, goats, and deer might include fever, disorientation, labored breathing, muscle tremors, congested mucous membranes, and collapse, and it's possible for a sudden death to occur without the presence of clinical signs. An animal can appear healthy and be dead within a matter of only a few hours. Often the initial signs are finding dead cattle. Cattle can die without signs of illness for a number of reasons, including lightning strikes, clostridial infections, and toxicities, but anthrax should always be considered according to those vets. Well, Elanco Animal Health has agreed to buy Bayer's veterinary drugs unit in a cash and stock deal valued at $7.6 billion. Subject to regulatory approval, the deal would create the second largest market of medicines for pets and livestock and expand Elanco's reach online. The deal adds to the list of assets recently sold by Bayer. The Montana Livestock Loss Board is receiving a $90,000 federal grant for non-lethal loss prevention efforts due to wolves. Producers can apply to the Livestock Loss Board for 2019 loss prevention grants with project expenses from January 1st through December 31st, 2019. This is a 50-50 grant process where producers pay half the project costs while the board covers the other half. Now, all projects must only be for projects related to wolves, although many of them may include grizzly bear loss prevention. The portion of a project that covers wolf loss prevention might be eligible for a grant from the board. But I just found this out. All grant applications had to be in by last week. Late submissions will not be reviewed, and producers may be asked to provide more information. Well, October the 1st, there's regular cattle sale and a yearling sale at the BC Livestock Co-op Kamloops Yards, and then a calf sale at Williams Lake Yards October 2nd and the Williams Lake regular sale October the 3rd. October the 4th, it's a pre-sort sale at the Vanderhoof Yards. Meanwhile, out there at the Innisfail auction market doing a great job for Alberta's cattle industry, and they have regular cattle sales every Wednesday. Lots of horse sales, and it would be a good idea maybe to list your cattle coming off a pasture for the fall run. Just give Danny, Mark, or Dwayne a call, 1-800-710-3166, or see InnisfailAuctionMarket.com. And now I guess we are down to the final item again. And on our recent Spirit of the West cruise, we sure had a lot of fun. When we all got together to sing those old campfire songs, I think we sounded pretty good. The Spirit of the West choir was in good voice. And you remember that old song, Down in the Little Green Valley? Well, that's when we all did, and sounded pretty good. The next day, the day after, we had an exclusive tour just for the Spirit of the West group of the ship's enormous kitchen, and they call it a galley. Fascinating place. And I hear that apparently just after we were there, they were mixing up a huge amount of spinach salad. Had to be enough to feed about 3,000 people. And they had a power surge, and that great big mixmaster kind of went nuts, and it plastered spinach and lettuce all over the walls. So we adapted the song, and we called it Down in the Little Green Galley. And that's the Rangeland News. I got to come up with something every week, and sometimes we reach pretty far. Coming up on the Irvin Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, a pretty important subject, the balance between being too easy and too assertive with your horse, when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Farm Fair International returns this November 6th to 10th. Witness the future of Alberta's agriculture industry as guests from around the world gather at the Edmonton Expo Center to buy and sell top-quality livestock, make important connections, and share knowledge. At Farm Fair, you can shop for unique holiday gifts at the Winter Marketplace or enjoy a variety of Western entertainment like the Stock Dog Trials and the Heritage Ranch Rodeo. It's a big deal to buy, sell, and connect. Plan your visit at farmfairinternational.com. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. You're just in time for this.
Now it's time for the Horse Training File, brought to you by Irvine Tack and Western Wear, Canada's largest Western store.
At Irvin Tack and Western Wear, you won't find this.
Change rooms? Change rooms? This ain't no five-star resort, Miss Prissy Pants.
But you will find this.
Change rooms are right over there. I'll be here when you're ready.
So saddle up for Irvin's today. They'll get you suited up for all the rodeo fun all summer long. Boots, belts, jeans, shirts, hats, and accessories. Best selection from Canada's largest Western store, exit 305 off Highway 2 by Crossfield.
Don't just wear it, live it. Irvin Tack and Western Wear.
The fine line between being easy and being too assertive, not being firm enough or being too firm with your horse. Resistance in horses is often just a symptom of your horse testing your leadership. And sometimes it's triggered by fear, but it goes into resistance when the horse doesn't trust you. Even well-seasoned ranch horses will show some hesitation when it comes to scrambling down a rocky, root-covered slope or through a tangled mess of rocks and limbs on the ground. Now, if the horse doesn't trust the rider at all, the fear will trigger the resistance, and the rider pushes hard, spurs, and slaps him with the reins, and often that'll cause the horse to try even harder not to go through the tough spot. Now, if the horse is seasoned, well-broke, and sees the rider as his leader, he'll usually hesitate a bit, wait for a slightly firmer command, and then go ahead. Now, The horse that's somewhere in between these two stages requires the rider to be able to read the horse and the situation accurately. If the trust is still fragile, it's probably best to stop at the obstacle and let him check it out. He knows you want him to cross, but he's concerned. Sometimes you can back him 6 or 8 steps and then urge him forward and he'll try harder. On the other hand, if he's a little further along and just wants to test your leadership, you'll need to be more assertive and firm. And if you're not firm enough, the resistance will win and he'll take over the agenda. If you're firm enough, with even a smack on his butt with your open hand or the end of the reins, that might be all it'll take to reinforce your leadership. The tricky part, of course, is to know at what stage the horse is at before you apply those cues. And for Irvin Saddles and Western Wear, that's the Horse Training File. Our horses get a daily feeding of Hoffman's horse ration, and I'm pretty sure that's what keeps them feeling good and looking good. You can find out all about it at hoffmanshorseration.com. Going to take you back to the O'Keefe Ranch Rodeo and my fellow team member Rob Dinwoody, but first I thought we ought to let you hear one of his songs.
4 riders heading into the hills, moving slow and dragging their heels. Today's gather won't be no thrill, no, such a sad day. And Aubrey wearing his batwing chaps, road smokes, he's always good for a laugh. But they won't be much of that, no, it's such a sad day. Ooh, the wind will blow, the rain will fall, and the grass will grow. I wonder where old cowboys go on such a sad day. Chris leads at an easy trot. He doesn't say much, but that speaks a lot. A good man with a rope and a doggo, it's such a sad day. The other hands, they're all good friends. They start the circle and spells the end. Have an outfit's been good to them, oh, it's such a sad day. Ooh, the wind will blow, the rain will fall, and the grass will grow. I wonder where old cowboys go, such a sad day. Ooh, but I'm here today, a job to do, gonna earn my pay. What tomorrow holds, I just can't say, when the liners haul the cattle away. Same bunch of grass, where Chug and Slim on their ponies sat. Same corral where they branded the calves, it's such a sad day. And Aubrey points to a place near the sky. He says, Slim's ashes there spread up there high. His voice quivers, wipes a tear from his eye, and he says, it's such a sad day. Ooh, the wind will blow, the rain will fall, and the grass will grow. I wonder where old cowboys go, such a sad day. Ooh, the wind will blow, the rain will fall, and the grass will grow. I wonder where old cowboys go, such a sad day. Ooh, but I'm here today, a job to do, gonna earn my pay. What tomorrow holds, I just can't say, when the liners haul the cattle away. Ooh, the wind will blow, the rain will fall, and the grass will grow. I Wonder where old cowboys go when the liners haul the cattle away.
Now back to the O'Keefe Ranch Rodeo with Rob Dinwoody. And you know, Rob, I think the best thing for me about being in this whole event was just being there in the same arena with so many of these great top hands.
It sure was. In fact, when I see their horses and the way they handle and realize what it takes actually to get a good working cow horse and to be able to handle a rope, it takes a lot of miles and it takes a lot of experience.
That's a good-looking little mare you got, though. What's the story on her?
Well, I got her from a good friend of mine. He's a cowboy, and he had this horse that he said he just wasn't getting any use of, and he said if I'd like to try her. He said he didn't sell her to me at first. He said you just try her out, and old Chug has a way. I guess he's a little horse seller from way back. So I took that horse home and I fell in love with her. She's got some paint blood in her, and I just got to get some miles on her, Hugh. I realized today that that's what makes a good working cow horse. I think just getting lots of miles on them and
lots of miles in the hills really helps. But I gather she wasn't totally accustomed to being in an arena with a big crowd clapping and flags waving and everything. And I thought, all in all, she handled that real well. You must have been happy with her.
Yeah, actually, I was. I considered what she did today. If there was any problem out there, it was the rider. And I realized myself, when you come up against some of the boys from the Douglas Lake and other cowboys that were here, the Coldstream Ranch and boys like that, I think what I'm going to do, Hugh, is I'm just going to make sure I really manage that grass well, and I'll leave the cowboy in, do the cowboys, and enjoy. I count it a privilege that they let me rope alongside of them. And
yeah, it was nice just to sort of ride out with these guys and then go through the motions. But I'll tell you what, you and Butch and I are going to probably practice a little bit more, and maybe.
Well, you know what it does, Hugh, is it kind of whets the appetite. It humbles you, and you say, next year we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Well, even if we can go up one cog, we'll give her our best shot.
We'll see what happens. Thanks, Rob.
Now, as the days get shorter, the fall work is underway, and here's Duke Davis.
The sun's waking up in the cow herd. The coffee's beginning to pour. The wrangler has jingled the horses, and old Coosie's been up since 4. It's bacon and beans and biscuits, then call out your mount to the boss. It's time for one last big circle on the back of a stout-legged horse. The fall work soon will be over as we gather the last of the herd. The dust devils dance across the prairie, and nobody is saying a word. The far sound of the low-balling cattle makes me tired of being alone. And I feel the first taste of the winter as it chills my soul to the bone. Move along slow to home, boys. Move along slowly for me. Move along, the fall work is over. I'll see you next year in the spring. I'll see you next year in the spring. The cattle, they all move so slowly, fat and lazy this time of year. And we prowl the La Jolla pasture till we've rounded up every last steer. We pin and ride back to the wagon. The shipping's all done for the fall, but the blues seem to be all around us. It
Nobody's riding too tall. Old Page, now he's fussing with Lolly, but Lolly ain't saying too much. And Lynn, well, he's dreaming of Barbara, and her cheek he's longing to touch. And Jerry, well, he's thinking of his new saddle that he'll pick up when we get to town, while Sam is riding behind us, just dragging and wearing a frown. Move along slow to home, boys. Move along slowly for me. Move along, the fall work is over. I'll see you next year in the spring. I'll see you next year in the spring. Move along slow to home, boys. Move along slowly for me. Move along, the fall work is over. I'll see you next year in the spring. I'll see you next year in the spring. I'll see you next year in the spring.
Coming up, a classic song of the West, and then Randy Rieman in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Farm Fair International returns this November 6th to 10th. Witness the future of Alberta's agriculture industry as guests from around the world gather at the Edmonton Expo Centre to buy and sell top-quality livestock, make important connections, and share knowledge. At Farm Fair, you can shop for unique holiday gifts at the Winter Marketplace or enjoy a variety of Western entertainment like the Stock Dog Trials and the Heritage Ranch Rodeo. It's a big deal to buy, sell, and connect. Plan your visit at farmfairinternational.com. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. The Cowboy Poetry Spotlight has a terrific piece of work from Randy Rieman. And for this week's classic song of the West, we're going to go way down into the vault for this rare one from the legend himself, Wilf Carter.
You often have heard the great tales of the range, where horses run wild and have never been tamed. But the hard-riding cowboy, as tough as old nails, could ride any bronco that followed the trail. We all tip our hats to old Strawberry Roan, for many a hard-riding cowboy he's thrown. Some boasted if ever they once had a chance, they'd show that old bronco the right way to dance. Yodelee, yodelee, yodelee. Well, we all gets a chance just 2 years ago to draw for the pony that had never been rode. They shook up the numbers so it would be law. Then each grinning cowboy reached in for the draw. My number was 7 and lucky some say, but it sure wasn't lucky for me on that day. In the old buck and shoot marked number 11 stood Strawberry Row and his side marked a 7. I eases the saddle down on his old hide. I knew my old bones were sure in for a ride. I cinched up the saddle till he gave it a groan. I knew my old partner was Strawberry Roan. I eased myself down on that rusty old hide. He shook like a leaf when my heel touched his side. Oh, everyone yelling as the gate opened wide. Old Strawberry seemed to jump out of his hide. Yodelee, yodelee, he spun like a top, even put one to shame, who says number 7 is lucky to gain. I soon realized I'd sure found my match. My legs were a-swinging and nothing to scratch. We just parted company and I laid on my pants. So where is that cowboy who could learn him to dance? There's no feller living who has any pride can honestly say he can fan that old hide. So I've hung up my spurs and my battered old saddle, and never a bronc will I again straddle. Good luck, all you cowboys, you sure lose your pride if you try to sit straddle old Strawberry's hide. Yodelee, oh, yodelee.
Now here's Randy Rieman again to open up the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight.
There are some great things about these cowboy poetry gatherings that have sprung up across the West. One thing is the cowboys get to tell their own story, and that may be the first time that's happened ever. We've usually had our story told by someone else, and hasn't always been exactly accurate. One nice thing about storytelling is the teller gets to live his experiences over again, and the other nice thing is he gets to share it with folks who may never be fortunate enough to have that experience. Now, I've been extremely fortunate in my life. I've been able to ride in some of the most beautiful landscapes in North America with some of the best cowboys in the business. And I consider it a privilege and a blessing to have made my living as a working cowboy. About 10 years ago, I rode for the West Fork Stock Association, and that's about 100 sections of land outside the borders of Yellowstone National Park. It's got the West Fork of the Madison River running right through it, and I shared my responsibilities there with a man named Todd Burley. We'd go into that camp in the spring, and we'd come out in the fall. It was an extremely beautiful place, and it was a hard place to leave. I wrote this poem about that place and about Todd. The poem's entitled Leaving Camp. Spring's a distant memory now. The green grass turned to brown. The scattered leaves of aspen trees blow golden across the ground. The larkspur and the lupine are faded out and gone. And ice has formed along the banks down at the beaver ponds. An early autumn snowfall has whitewashed distant peaks, and the cattle sensing winter leave the high ground in retreat. This snow will melt 'neath autumn's sun before it comes to stay, but the warning's made and heeded. We know winter's on its way. The circling of the sandhill cranes reminds us that it's time to be moving off a summer range and leaving camp behind. The season's nearly finished. Like the cranes, the time flies by. We'll soon be rolling up our beds and shaking hands goodbye. So we linger on the ridges in the sunset's parting rays, and we walk and talk instead of trot, and try to stretch the days. These autumn days we cherish while our youth is on display are the ones we know we'll long for when we're burdened down with age. It's more than nature's beauty that I hate to leave behind. It's a friend who, mile after mile, has ridden by my side from the cold gray light of morning till the long day's twilight end. A good and faithful partner and a trusted lifelong friend. With a handshake and a few brief words, we'll wish each other well, then both go our separate ways to face the winter's chill. But leaving camp ain't easy when it's shared with such a friend. The kind you've been to me, Todd. Hope we share camp soon again. Vaya con Dios, amigo.
Well, thanks again for making the ride, and I sure hope you can join us right here next week at the same time. And as always, thanks to that great Spirit of the West support crew. That would be Mark and Kathy McMillan. And you know, Mark can help you. If you're looking for tractor parts, just see his page, bctractorparts.com. And be sure to check out Canadian Cowboy Country Magazine at cowboycountrymagazine.com. That's where you can subscribe online. Till next week, I'm Hugh McLennan. Hope to see you down the trail somewhere real soon.